Welcome. Today I'm going to be stepping out on a limb and talking about something that is not as comfortable to talk about as depression and anxiety. Believe it or not, there's something more difficult to discuss that's not depression or anxiety. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I was recently diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I will tell you that when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know what it was. I didn't like the way it sounded, and I immediately resisted. It took a team of doctors to sit with me and provide me information that told me that basically explained what borderline personality disorder is. And once I started reading into it and understanding it better, my life made much more sense than it ever has. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to be calling it BPD because that is so much easier to say than borderline personality disorder. I'm also going to be leaving a link of a reputable website so that you can do your own research and your own reading. I'm not sure if you know someone who has BPD or if you have it yourself. Hopefully the website and this video can help you understand it a bit better. So here it goes. And if you're joining in, I would love to know where you're watching from. I would love to know what you did today. Did you get to enjoy some good weather? What was your day like? Please share in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. As you know, when I started this page, I wanted it to be a community. Therefore, it is so important for me personally to hear from you guys and know what's going on in your lives. It just makes it feel more like a community. So I did take bullet points because, as you are aware, I've been struggling with memory, and I do whatever I can lately to help me to not forget things. That's just the honest truth. Hi Pam, thanks for watching. What'd you do today? I don't want to get too off track, but so okay, let me get to it. I'm going to try to keep this short. So let me just start by saying my whole life, pretty much my whole life, I'm not gonna say my whole life, but pretty much my whole life, I really felt like I must be crazy. Like I felt like I was not like everyone else. Like there was something seriously wrong with me and I didn't know what that is. But what I would tell myself is I'm just crazy. You know, when I had angry outbursts, I'm just crazy. If I am overly sensitive, I'm just crazy. Everything was always kind of described as, yeah, this is what I did, I'm just crazy, or yeah, this is how I feel, I'm crazy. Because I always felt like I needed to add that because no one else around me really acted in those ways or understood some of the things I would say sometimes as far as, you know, what I was feeling, etc. So again, I would always I felt the need to explain it by telling people that I was crazy. And it's interesting because I was thinking about that today, and I thought to myself, isn't it ironic that most of the things that we don't understand, we call crazy? If you think about that, that happens with almost everything, right? Even if you're telling like a story of like you going whitewater rafting and, you know, how fun that is to you and how, you know, you could be like near death on the whitewater raft and yet still be like so excited and have so much fun and talk about how you want to do that over and over and over again. And for somebody who doesn't understand that there are people that are adventurous like that, they would probably say, you're crazy, right? How many times do we not hear that from people who just don't understand our position or our thought process? And so I found that interesting because I kept saying that I was crazy because I didn't know how to explain my personality or the thoughts that go through my head that seemed very extreme compared to the way that other people think. So when they diagnosed me and they began to explain what borderline personality disorder is, BPD, it made me realize that I had been probably battling this for a really, really long time and had no idea because I wasn't educated on it. I wasn't aware of BPD and how it works. And so I really, I hate labels. I really do. Like, I don't like to call myself disabled or anything really of that matter. I take labels with a grain of salt, but I'm also wise enough to know that there are specific names for specific illnesses. And just because we don't necessarily want the name, it doesn't mean that the illness does not exist. And so once I became more comfortable, once I became more comfortable with understanding that it was just an illness, it was just a name, it was just a diagnosis, and now it was up to me to understand the diagnosis, it really helped me. It really shifted how I think about myself or even my responses to certain things. So what I wanted to talk about today is a couple of things. So I wanted to talk about this series that I'm going to be starting. I'm not really sure how many weeks it's going to be because there's so much to discuss, but I'm thinking that it'll probably be no more than 4 weeks. So today is basically the intro, just letting you know the gist of what BPD is. And then in the next 2 to 3 series, I'll be discussing it in more detail, and I'll be giving more of a maybe example of what it looks like for the topic that we're talking about. And I think it's important to do this video because, you know, me and my husband have been trying to figure this out and work around it. And, you know, he has so many questions that I don't even think he has because I'm not on the other end of it. And also I've learned so much about it, but there's no way we could possibly share everything we learned with everybody, right? So recently we've been discussing BPD and how it affects me and how we need to navigate health in a healthy way. So that was part of me doing this video, is to help anyone who is battling BPD and wants to know that they're not alone, or also wants to understand it better because maybe you haven't been able to really have conversations about it. But the other reason for this video is to, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, is to talk about like the gist of what it is. So BPD, and I'll break it down in the next video, but BPD is basically a personality disorder in which people who have it have a really, really difficult time with regulating emotions. So what does that look like in layman's terms? That means that, let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like an example. So let's say you have a friend and you are always doing for that friend, right? So like you're always the first one to text, you're always the first one to like treat them, you're always the first one to do almost everything, or at least in your head that's what's happening. And then you realize like, wait, this relationship isn't being reciprocated. Like I'm not seeing that this person is making as much as an effort as I am, right? In most people's minds or their reactions, hey Janelle, long time no see, I've missed you so much. So for most people, that would bother them, and they would either text less, contact less, do less, or they might address it with the person in a calm manner and say, you know, this is just what I'm feeling. I'm probably wrong. You know, can we talk about this? Whatever. For someone who has BPD, that looks so different. So for someone with BPD, because we're unable to regulate our emotions, it's either extreme usually for people like us. So that could look more like crying and saying, this person has never been my friend. This person has never had my back. This person is just an awful person and they don't love me and they've abandoned me and they don't want to be my friend. And it's just like, it sounds ridiculous. And I recognize that when I say it, but it's so very real to the person that it's sad. And once I realized that that is what has been literally driving me crazy almost my whole life, it really put things into a different perspective for me. And I learned how to not go black or white, not be all or nothing. And it's helped me kind of be in the middle. But for someone with BPD, there's very little middle ground. It's usually one extreme or the other, which is why people with BPD can be very explosive. They can be very angry, but they can also love you hard. Like they can love with all that they have because it's very all or nothing. Another thing I wanted to talk about is just because you hear that name and it does sound scary, right? Borderline personality disorder. Like, are you on the borderline of like hurting me? Or what is the borderline? You have a personality disorder. Does that mean like you're gonna kill me? Like, I know when I heard that, I was like, people are gonna be afraid of me. But one thing I wanted to cover in this video is no, these are not dangerous people. In fact, I'm gonna be leaving a link again, as I said earlier. If you look up the symptoms and what this causes in a person who's battling life, they're far from scary. I mean, don't get me wrong, there can be like anger and rage and all those things, but it's not like they walk around and they're a threat to society. That's not how it is at all. So just because it sounds scary doesn't make it scary, which is, the whole motto of this page is let's break some stigmas. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about as far as like people who have BPD, and I mentioned it earlier, is they love so hard. So I do want to get across that don't be afraid of anyone who says that they have been diagnosed with BPD, because they are probably some of the most loving people. Why? Because it's usually all or nothing. So I think you're getting the kind of like the theme for people with BPD. It's black and white, it's all or nothing. They have a really hard time regulating their emotions. And unfortunately, unless you've been diagnosed and you really understand what kind of tendencies you have because of this illness, it's really hard to change those behaviors. So you may be in a situation where maybe you were diagnosed, you don't really understand it, or someone, and relationships are very tumultuous because you don't understand what you're doing wrong. You really don't understand what you're doing wrong. So that's what I want to kind of go over in the next few weeks, is like specific topics and what those examples look like in people and what can be done to kind of mitigate some of the pain that comes along with BPD. So I don't know if anybody, I know I see a few people watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions while I'm wrapping up, please feel free to comment below. I will see the question and I will do my best to answer. Thank you, Cindy. I love you so much. I love seeing pictures of your grandbabies. It like fills my heart. So thank you for the rose. And yes, Coraline, I had no idea that it existed until last year, and I'm actually very glad that I kind of got to the bottom of what was going on in my life. And I was diagnosed with other things. Again, I don't consider it like who I am, but it's nice to know that I can be in better control of the symptoms and manage my responses better, knowing that I have this. So yeah, I don't know how you feel about it, but that's how I feel. I feel like it's, been really helpful in me changing some of my behaviors in that whole black and white, all or nothing approach. But if there's no other questions, hey, Lydia, you might have to catch the replay. I'm wrapping up, but I just want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know there's so many things competing with your schedule, so I really appreciate and I understand that it takes special people to take the time to watch this. So thank you so much for supporting. Thank you.